literally dump the whole thing, meat and water, on the potatoes, mix it up, grouse and potatoes, literally a 99-cent dinner.
Dude, that's a great idea until you start missing grouse and losing arrows.
Yeah, I didn't tell you that, I used 4 arrows to kill 1 grouse, so now it's like an $80 grouse.
Yeah, that takes your budget and it just throws it right out the window.
Welcome to The Rich Outdoors, where we break down the tips, tactics, and strategies of hunting's greats to not only help you become better hunters, but to motivate and inspire you between hunting adventures. For more about us, including additional resources on our guests and links to everything we cover in the interview, check out therichoutdoors.net.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's the Rich Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Cody Rich. Thank you guys for all the messages, all the DMs. It seems like this time of year we get a ton of new listeners, and I just wanted to go out of my way to say thank you and my apologies if we didn't get back to you, just overloaded with the workload and everything else. So I appreciate all the messages. If I didn't hit you back, my apologies. Today's podcast is with Mr. Jaden Bales. Jaden, who has been such a huge help to me over the last year. I can't thank him enough. I've got a lot of respect for him. Jaden reached out and has been doing all of our social media, has been doing various other tasks as the podcast grows and gets busier and busier, and there's so much to keep up with. So Jaden had this idea, and it kind of goes back to last January. We did a podcast with Mike and Angela Harrelson about financial planning for hunting, and which has been downloaded thousands of times and tons of feedback. And so Jaden had the idea that we should do a podcast about hunting on a college budget. So after reminiscing about it and all of our hunting trips during our broke-ass college days, we decided we should just hit record and see where it goes and go over some tips for hunting on the cheap, so to speak. Such a fun podcast. We had a blast doing it, just telling stories and some really good tips in there about just, I don't know, being frugal, so to speak, buying tags, not gear, as I like to say. If you guys like this podcast, be sure to check out episode 198 as well with Mike and Angela. It's, I would say, part 2 of this whole financial thing. So awesome podcast. We had fun, and I hope you guys pick some tips out of it. And at the end of the day, I hope you guys don't look at hunting as something that's so expensive you can't do. There's a lot of people out there, and I think just it can be done. And, I think so many people just don't go on Western hunts because they think it's just out of the price range. And I think when it boils down to creating a budget and just making it happen and being frugal, not being fancy, I think it can be done relatively cheap. So hope you guys enjoy it. Let us know if you do. Leave an iTunes review. Also, stay tuned after the show. We're going to do an iTunes 5-star shout out, give away some free gear. And appreciate it. Thanks, guys. All the feedback. Loving it. I hope you guys are doing well. Have a great weekend. Today's episode brought to you by onX Maps. onX is a must-have tool for all of you serious hunters. With season just around the corner, I am constantly using my onX to e-scout and learn everything I can about my upcoming hunts. onX Maps works across all of my devices, so I can scout areas, mark locations on my desktop, and then automatically they appear on my phone when I'm in the field using my smartphone as a GPS. onX even works on your phone if you don't have service or it's in airplane mode. I just save all the maps that I am going to need, and before I head into the backcountry or go out of service, and my onX app will show me right where I am and show me all of my waypoints from e-scouting and all of my marked locations. onX is available in all 50 states, and I can't speak highly enough about this system. It is truly a must-have for me, and I think anyone hunting out west. Even if you're not worried about the public-private, you're hunting deep in the wilderness, it's still an awesome tool. But if you're anywhere near private land, it is a must-have. Use the promo code TRO, and you'll get 20% off your membership. Go download it today and get familiar with the app before your hunt. Don't download it on your way to your hunt. Get familiar with this because there's so many cool tools that you can learn from it. Go to onxmaps.com. Check it out. This episode brought to you by iSocial Boost. iSocial Boost is an Instagram growth tool that can help you grow your tribe in an organic way. iSocialBoost has been helping me grow the Backcountry Fuel Box Instagram for the last couple of months, and I have been blown away with just almost over 7,000 followers now, and they're helping me convert followers into subscribers. Whether you're a small business or just want to grow your personal following, iSocialBoost can help you get thousands of real followers that actually fit your brand. I've actually been so impressed with them that I'm having them start to grow the podcast Instagram as well, and helping get exposure to the podcast for all those people that maybe don't even know it exists. Check them out. If you want to give them a try, you will not be disappointed. Head over to isocialboost.com. Use the promo code TRO and you'll get 80% off your first week. They're so sure that you're going to love it. They're basically giving it to you for free. Go check it out. If you want to grow your small business or just grow your personal brand, Instagram is a great place to do it. Check it out. All right, buddy. Jaden's on the podcast. How we doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm pretty stoked.
So Jaden's been helping me out quite a bit for how long you been helping me now?
Probably about 7 months now. Started right about the beginning of the year.
Yeah, so finally getting you on the podcast. You and I have kind of been talking about this idea for a podcast, kind of like how to do a podcast on a budget. And your pitch to the whole thing was how to do it on a college budget, which it's the same thing. It's like how to hunt on a budget. There's a lot of people that would just want to hunt on a budget that aren't in college, so to speak. But it falls into a lot of what you and I've talked about, like buying tags, not gear, and all this kind of stuff that goes into it that is counterintuitive to pretty much everything within the hunting industry. So it's gonna be a fun podcast. We're probably gonna piss off some sponsors, but that's all right.
Yeah, I don't mind. We'll just call this podcast The Poor Outdoors.
The Poor. Well played. So introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself from Eastern Oregon. What else?
Yep. All right. Like Cody said, like you said, I'm an Eastern Oregon boy. I grew up on a farm out there outside of La Grande. And then I did the weird thing listening to my mom, and I went to college instead of staying on the farm. So I spent 4 years there at the University of Oregon. And then just last year, I moved out to Bend with my first job. And then being as I drive a desk for a living, I am moving to Laramie and keeping my job here in Bend, so I get to work remote. So I get to improve some hunting and still make a little bit of a living out here in Oregon. So that's going to be pretty fun. So
it's kind of like hunting on a budget or hunting on a budget hunting on a college budget or hunting while paying off college type budget.
Oh, dude. Yeah, no kidding. I got lucky and I actually came out pretty good on college or college debt, especially compared to some of my buddies. But then, as you know, I got this harebrained idea to make money by starting my own business. And little did I know, when you start your own business, you don't make money for a long time.
If anything, there's a higher chance of losing money than making money for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. So that just I was feeling pretty good coming out of college, and then that just tanked my bank account or what little there was of it from working in college and stuff. So pretty much as soon as I came out of school, I was starting from scratch. It was pretty humbling, but it taught me a lot. So that was good.
So I got an interesting question for you. You went to school Eastern Oregon and you grew up Eastern Oregon, went to school in Western Oregon. Terrible choice for college, but we'll work through that. But for those who don't know, the school from where you grew up, school's probably 7 or 8 hours away?
I could do it in 6 if I was pushing it.
That's impressive. Okay. So 6 hours. I guess, yeah. If you kind of cross the middle of the state anyway. So we'll go 6 hours away. So it's not like you could hunt where you kind of were. Did you still hunt through college? And if you did, was that kind of around Eugene or was that back towards home?
So what I did when I still worked at the farm in the summers for the first few summers in college. And what I did is I picked up a bow that first year and started archery hunting because school didn't start till mid-September or so. Mm-hmm. And so I started archery hunting and was hunting back home. And then it didn't dawn on me until my last year in college that there was a second season archery tag for deer that was valid in Eugene in November. So I only hunted like around Eugene that last year. But other than that, I actually did spend most of my time hunting back in Eastern Oregon, just around the ranch and up in the mountains, kind of like in the Eagle Cap area.
Man, the one benefit of going to college in Eugene is that you're like prime blacktail country, and you didn't even take advantage of it. Come on, man.
I know. And that's one of the things that, like, that was right there a great learning lesson of, like, I wanted to hunt more. I was always like, God, I wish I could, just be home for this. For instance, like I swapped over because rifle buck season was started the same week school did. And I should have just freaking looked at the regs closer, because I could have just been hunting, while I was going to school those 3 years instead. So
yeah,
that was a good lesson to learn.
One piece of advice I would give, and this is probably terrible advice. This is me as a parent not giving you this advice, but me as whoever you want to call it, bad advice Phil. Bad advice Phil would say, I heard through the grapevine of a friend that would go to school summer term but take the fall term off, so you have all the fall to hunt. And I was like, the program that I went to school for like didn't allow that, but if I could go back and do it, I might like switch my I guess my major or my program that I would be in just for that, so I could like hunt in the fall.
That's such a good idea.
No one tells you that when you're 19. You're like, oh, that's a clever idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. My way around it was I loaded up classes on 2 days of the week, mm-hmm. And so then I had like 5 days of the week where I wasn't doing anything. And then in the summer when I didn't have school, I just made as much money as I could, so that by the time school came around, I had a little bit to play with. So yeah. That was a good move. But I like your method even better. I think that would have been a good.
I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's an idea. I'll just throw it out there. So I want to go through and kind of like talk about, I don't know, basically hunting on a college budget. I guess to kick it off, do you got any good stories of like dirtbag hunting, so to speak? And I say dirtbag because it's kind of like a term that comes from like the rock climbing community that's like basically living off nothing, right? Oh, yeah. So I remember through college, I had a lot of dirtbag hunting days, like a lot of trips to Eastern Oregon. We'd bomb to like the Steens and literally have like 2 cans of chili and maybe a thing of hot dogs, and we'd just go for, whatever. And like we had no gear, like there was no camo, there was no packs, like nothing. It was just like, yeah, let's go hunting. And we'd bomb over east somewhere with nothing at all.
Oh, yeah. So last year, this is a good example. Like, this is all so recent for me. Like, it's easy for me to recall. Because, I still am, like, working kinks out every time I go to the mountains. But, like, last year, my buddy and I were like, yo, let's just, run up to the Eagle Caps real quick. And as most people know, it gets up there pretty high elevation for Oregon. So we're just, and it looks like some precipitation's coming through, but we should be fine. My buddy's got this, like, he's got the Kafaru teepee tent, and we threw it on our backs and started headed up the hill. And we were like, let's camp on the top. And then, like, halfway through the day, it started just nuking snow on us. And I was, like, not prepared. I had September elk hunting gear, not November snow gear. So I am just sitting there like, what are we going to do? So we were like, I guess we'll go back to the truck and see what we can dig up. My buddy's rocking like his blue jeans and his like white, like logger boots. And I'm sitting there in like tennis shoes and just these really torn up, nasty, like old Cabela's pants that were like $20 or something. Yeah. And then so we went back and we swapped out clothes for some drier stuff. But I mean, just that right there took us off the mountain, and we were just like, oh my God, what did we get ourselves into? His pickup didn't have 4-wheel drive, as we like had wheeled into there pretty good. And so as we were coming out, his phone broke, and he left me there to watch camp as he went out, and I was knocking snow off all night long as he went to LeGrand, which was 2 hours away, to go get a new phone. So, it was just one of those things, just not prepared, and everything went wrong that first day. And we had elk bugling too. We were like super bummed because we were just like, are you serious? We can hear them. Like we were not prepared for that. And dude, if we'd had our stuff together for, what we encountered, that would have been a huge benefit.
It's funny is like I laugh about that because I remember so many early hunts. Like I remember, my first trip out of state to Idaho comes like to mind, but even by then, like I had a little bit more money and I remember like way more dirtbag stuff. This is like when I had a tent. Like, so before my first out of state hunt, like I didn't even have a tent. Like we were just like sleep in the front seat of the pickup, like nothing. But when I did, I thought I had some stuff and it didn't really matter. It was just like crap gear. But I went to Idaho and I had like Bimart rain gear. I grew up on like Bimart hunting stuff, which for those who like don't know, Bimart, great stuff. Probably not the top of the line. I think you could probably outfit an entire hunt for like $100. So like good. It's a good place to shop. Don't get me wrong. Like to this day, like Montana doesn't have a Bimart, but if they did, I would still buy stuff there just because it's so cheap. But rain gear probably not like my top pick from Bimart because first hunt was in that first out of state hunt was in Idaho and it poured and like I had a 3-season tent that was just not super waterproof and there was pretty much water running through the bottom of it. Air mattress that like for whatever reason I had an air mattress because I was truck camping, so like leaked every night and like literally you were flat, but you had to like blow it up in the middle of the night just so you stay out of the water. Like crap gear. But when it goes back to it, like those are the stories you remember, man. Like I have so many fond stories of crap experiences that going bombing over east with my buddies or whatever it may be. Like I remember a super early trip, my buddy Mark and I bombed the Ochicos. Again, it was like we grabbed ravioli in a can and would cook it over the campfire and that's it. And like sleep in a sleeping bag under the truck. That was it. Like that was our hunting trip. And like, it didn't take anything fancy. And I think this world gets so wrapped up in high speed gear and high speed gear is great, right? Like if you can afford it, but this goes back to this like whole conversation. I always say is I don't know how I get quoted for it so much, but it's like buy tags, not gear. And it just boils down to like having those experiences are going to far outlive even the gear that you buy with the same dollars, right?
Oh, you bet, man. Like, I always remember, like, we would, I always had buddies who were wildland firefighters over the summer. And when they came back, I would always raid their stashes of MREs and Gatorade because that's all they had. And
they were like tired of them.
Oh, yeah. They were like, no, dude, take them. Like, these aren't any good anymore. And you bust that, like, the old ravioli open up there on the mountain, and you're like, I guess this will go down. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and as you kind of get a little bit more creative, you might, throw some Idaho potatoes in there and boil some water when you actually get up there. And it's good.
So when it comes to like college budgets, I guess, or college savings, building a hunt on a budget, so to speak, like what would you say your best advice to yourself, like early college years would be?
Dude, I think the number one thing is to just use up all the opportunity you have within the state you're living. Because like I was telling you earlier, like I could have been hunting in November and December, like for 3 years on the west side of Oregon before I realized that I could hunt on the west side of Oregon in November and December. Like that is important to know, like just know those regulations in and out. Because instead of buying another tag in Idaho or buying another tag in a different state out west, like it's important just to take what you got back home. I mean, frick, man, if you're spending a couple $100 on an out of state tag versus 25 or 30 in state, like it doesn't really make sense, especially because most of the time you can burn those tags or hunt those tags a lot closer to your house, save gas that way too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like if you live in a Western state, take advantage of the opportunities that are within your home state just because the cost is so much cheaper. There's going to be a lot of guys that, are back east or whatever and want to hunt elk or something. And I would say hands down, do it. I think if you found, say, I don't know, you're in the Midwest and you want to go on a mule deer hunt or an elk hunt and you're at college, like, well, I'm at college, I can't afford it. To me, I would find a way. Like, I think it teaches you how to create dollars over just, trying to live without, which is a good lesson. But if you could get like 3 or 4 buddies, like hands down, buy the tag, and like maybe that chews up half your budget for the year. Like you're like, hey, $1,000, that's all I got to spend on a hunt this year. That's my hunting season. But if 4 dudes get together in college and say, hey, we're all going to put $1,000 towards this, and we're going to come back hopefully with at least 1 elk and a hell of an experience, and that elk's going to feed us, through the rest of the term or the semester or the rest of the year for that's your meat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you bet. And I think what you said there, like, you just got to it's like creating the budget to do it. Yeah. Like you go, all right, I'm like working this into whatever my living expenses are for the year, and it goes back to like, just like making sure you work extra to like get there. I mean, shoot, if you're, living in rural America, you can go buck bales or drive tractor or like go pick up some side jobs on the weekend and make a couple $100 pretty easily.
$1,000 throughout the entire year is pretty low. Like you could pretty much take back your beer cans and get $1,000 to go hunting with.
Oh, another pro tip on making quick money: go to any car dealership and offer to wash their cars. That is never been turned down.
Really?
That was how we always that was how they always want people to wash their rigs. And, if they can get some kids to do it for cheaper than the, quote unquote professionals, dude, they'll do it in an instant. Yeah, that's a good one. We did that a lot in high school.
That's how you made money in college or high school?
Well, we did that a lot in high school. We were just like, we wanted to go, we had some school trips and stuff like, that we wanted to go on. And we were like, well, shoot, let's just like pay for it with car washer money when, like the farm, it wasn't busy all year round, so you had to make up the difference somehow. Yeah. So yeah, that was a big one for us.
So when it comes to like making a budget as a college student, where do you think the priorities land, and like what do you prioritize over other things?
All right, obviously prioritize your tag, but then after that, prioritize your gas. Like if you can get 2 trips out to a place, say it's a month-long season, and you can get 3 or 2 trips of 5 days out there, like that's going to increase your odds immensely. I mean, I don't know, what would you prefer? Would you prefer having 2 sets of 5 days or 1 set of 10 days?
I'd say 1 set of 10 days, but that the odds of that happening are probably not as likely. The other tough part is like, would you rather split the cost with another buddy but have to come back, or like some of those, you have to weigh that predicament. Obviously, I would choose the longest number of days because you don't want to be shuttling back and forth and spending money on gas that you don't really need to. But I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. But yeah, I hands down agree with you. Like buy tags first and then buy fuel, and the more fuel you can buy. And I would also say like, if your area is 100 miles away and you're budgeting for 20 gallons of fuel or whatever it is, 30, I don't know if that makes sense, 30 gallons of fuel, and you're like, okay, it's X amount of miles, so I need so much for fuel. Like, put a 25% increase on that just to be safe. Like there's a lot of running around, or, if you're going to a trailhead, that's probably one thing, but like, budget a little bit more for fuel just in case, like maybe you had to run to town to grab something, like who knows?
Maybe your phone dies and you got to go get a new one 2 hours away.
Maybe you get a flat tire 20 miles out of town and you got to take a cab or something. I don't know. That's definitely not happened ever.
or you could do what I did last year and just run it to town on the rim and not realize it and then be out of tire.
And a rim. That's terrible.
That made that trip a little bit more expensive, not gonna lie.
Yeah, but I think overall, just like not getting fancy, I think people they have a lot of wants but not a lot of needs. So I would say, like, if you're sitting down like, hey, I want to do this, here's my budget, it's $1,500 or it's $1,000, here's the tag cost. I mean, you don't have to, there's things you want and things you need. Don't confuse the two. So what do you need? Obviously you need a gun or a bow, whichever you're going to go on. Just even right there, so many people think they got to buy a brand new setup, all this. You can get bows really cheap. Hell, borrow a bow. Like, there's so many bows out there that are, I mean, the bows in the last 10 years are all super capable, very effective. There's probably someone out there that has a bow they're not using. Like, someone you know, or a friend of someone you know has a bow, and they're probably like, yeah, you can freaking use it. Like, I don't care, whatever. Same with a gun. Like, you could probably borrow a gun or buy one super cheap if you're like, gotta get it. But I think the overall thing is, like, don't get fancy. Like, right? Like, just... the
110%, man. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to ever claim to be the world's most efficient killer out there, but I spent and this is just classic college kid budget, spent $350 on my bow setup when I got it. And it put 2 animals down like in the first 2 years after I got it. And I was like, oh sweet. That'll work.
That's it, dude. I'm not saying. I remember arrows in college were like, man, that was like a mortgage payment back then. You're like, oh, I gotta buy arrows.
Oh, dude. I buy them off of my buddies who are like, yeah, I'm gonna try something new. I'm like, oh, I'll take that one. I actually just did that I bought arrows off my uncle like 2 weekends ago. Man, you save so much money getting secondhand stuff. Yeah. And now making sure that it's safe also. Like, obviously with something like arrows, you're not gonna just go pick up somebody's splintered, Easton Axis that they've shot for the last 4 years. Like, don't do that. But at the same time, like you're saying, don't get fancy. Like, nothing that you have needs to be brand new if it's in good shape. Sorry to your sponsors.
No, yeah, no, I really don't care about that. The other thing I would say is, like, if you have, like, there's a lot of people out there that probably grew up skiing or, I don't know, hiking, like, they got pretty good gear. Like, if you got some Arc'teryx stuff or, like, whatever it may be, some ski gear, like, it's probably good enough. Like, you don't need a camo rain jacket. It's just not a necessity. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many people that are like, gotta have, like, there's my camo kit.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, this works really good. And blue jeans and a flannel will do just fine. Like, you'll make it. Like, get out there, spend the time on the experience and not, like, the gear. Like, over and over, right?
Oh, yeah. I couldn't emphasize that enough. Like I was saying, my buddy and I last year, I mean, this kid is like, his family is like an outfitter out there in kind of that northeast corner. And the dude's still, like I said, running blue jeans and whites. Like, these guys are known for killing animals and, like, don't have the nicest stuff. And, like, it's nice to have good stuff because you can, stay out there longer or, be more comfortable when stuff gets miserable. But that's not what is going to kill you all, kill your animals or fill your tags at the end of the day.
Yeah, and on that note, like, a lot of that stuff, say you wanted to buy some hunting gear or, like, stuff to hunt in, I don't know what we call it, hunting gear, but, like, there's probably a lot of options out there that are outside of the hunting industry that are pretty good prices. Like, you can find stuff, I don't know, somewhere, your general store or something, right?
Well, that's honestly, like, I would bet you 80 to 90% of everything I run is non-hunting. And I don't like to always, promote saying, like, don't buy hunting gear because it's too expensive or whatever. I think we need to support the hunting companies when we can. But if you go out there and have a bad time because you bought some Biomart stuff that didn't work for you, it's a good idea, like you're saying, to look into some of those, hiking, backpacking, REI crowd, like, gear to get you to that point.
Yeah.
And as you know, I worked in a ski shop in college, and just knowing what kind of gear is out there that, even though it doesn't have a camo pattern on it, being knowledgeable about the different synthetic materials or the way Gore-Tex works, or, like, just those kinds of fabrics and ways that it works with your body are what's going to make you more comfortable. It's not going to necessarily be whether you buy the name brand or not.
Yeah, no, and there's something to be said for that, because, like, buying from companies within the hunting industry, obviously, they pay the excise tax on that, so, and it goes to conservation of wildlife and things like that. So there's good, but I will say I would rather get more people involved in hunting and, like, get someone hooked that may have seen hunting as this barrier to where it's like, oh man, I got to buy all new gear and gun. Like, I don't have I don't have $5,000 to spend on gear to go hunting. Whereas, like, if you get someone, I know that if they have that experience, that bugle in your face experience, they're going to spend like $20,000 to $100,000 over the next 10 to 20 years. So like they'll be hooked. That's fine. We'll just get them in the woods for now.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's kind of like, it reminds me of when I was a little kid, like we definitely didn't have very good gear. And my dad used to take us goose hunting all the time. And we'd be out there and lay down blinds and it would be snowing on us and you'd just be freezing. And I don't know what was wrong with me, but I ended up enjoying it still. But most of my two brothers were like, dude, why are we out here? Like, can we just go home now? This is not fun, you know? And when it gets to that point, that's when you start losing people. You know, it's like when you get to that miserable, can't feel my fingers, like, when you're at the point of just not wanting to be out there anymore,
that's true.
1, you're not going to fill your tag. 2, you're probably not going to go hunting the next year, you know?
That's so true. I didn't have waterproof clothes as a kid. So I had like, again, a Bimart jacket, but it was not waterproof whatsoever. Like not even an attempt to be. It was like literally a cotton jacket. And so my dad, we had a pellet stove. And so my dad would cut armholes and then head hole out of a pellet bag before we went hunting, and he'd put the pellet bag over me, and then I put my camo jacket over that. That was my rain gear as a kid.
That's so funny hearing that too, because you're obviously a West Side kid, so like it wasn't like uncommon for you to get a deluge of rain. Like,
it was not uncommon for like 6 hours of rain, and it was just like, yeah, it was warm, like it worked, I guess.
That's funny. Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, like you can make it through it, you can grunt it out, but yeah, I mean, it's not any good to do that if you can avoid it.
Yeah, I think another expense that's really big if you want to go like DIY, low budget type hunt, and this is especially true when you talk about backpacking. Like if you're going to go on truck camp, this situation gets a little bit cheaper, but if you're going to backpack, it's pretty expensive, and that's food. Like your food budget is pretty freaking big. First off, dehydrated meals are expensive. Any kind of lightweight, high calorie bars or anything like that are pretty friggin' expensive. And I'm always blown away, even to this day, every year when I go and buy food, and it's like my food bill is extreme. But that's another thing that I think, like, if you really spend some time and do your research, you can really save some money. Like, and I don't care if that's, you know, buying freaking cans of Hormel chili and just living off chili for a week or whatever it may have to be. But I would definitely say, like, do your research there. And like I said, that gets tough if you're going to backpack. If you're like, man, I really want to go backpacking, this and that. Cans of Hormel chili, like if you're bringing 20 cans of chili, like that's pretty heavy.
Dude, if you're bringing cans of chili, I am not sleeping next to you. So that already is off the list. No, but I think it's super important to just like start playing with stuff on your own time to like try to make your own backcountry food. You know, you can dehydrate. For a good example of that is you can buy a can of chili, dehydrate that chili, and then put it in a Ziploc bag and throw it in your backpack, and you've just lost a bunch of weight. Especially if you're doing, you know, those multi-day trips where you're going to have your stove with you, obviously, and able to boil some water and reconstitute that back to life. So another thing that I really like doing is drying like fruit and having bags of fruits and nuts that are in my backpack. And probably on a weekly basis, we go buy a big bag of apples and dehydrate apples. So even though, you know, I eat them at my desk at work, but like that's a great example of something you can just throw together really fast, whether you're using a dehydrator or, you know, even just throwing it in your oven with a little fan sitting next to it is pretty easy to make that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or like you had mentioned earlier, those Idaho and potato bags are like bags of instant potatoes. I still this day eat those all the time. Like I'll take one of those with me just as like extra calories. Just caloric intake and like the fillingness of that thing is through the roof. It's hands down, dude, bang for your buck. Awesome. It's like $1.
This is the best. Oh yeah, and it's like the best backcountry comfort food like that you that money can buy, in my opinion. I would rather mix like if I had a buddy of mine who had like a mountain house of like your stroganoff and I had my Idahoan, I would totally split that with him and do something like that, just so you're not plowing through as much of like your mountain house or other kinds of food. Because like you said, that stuff gets expensive and it adds up real fast.
Yeah, and if you're like hunting in a grouse area, here's another tip. If you're hunting in an area with grouse and you can legally harvest grouse and all that jazz, I kill quite a few grouse, and I'll basically, when I kill a grouse, I'll breast it out, cube it up, so it's just chunks of cube. When I boil my water, say for my Idaho potatoes, I'll just throw that meat in there until it comes to a boil. The meat is pretty much done. Literally dump the whole thing, meat and water, on the potatoes, mix it up, grouse and potatoes, literally a 99-cent dinner.
Dude, that's a great idea until you start missing grouse and losing arrows.
Yeah, I didn't tell you that, like, I used 4 arrows to kill 1 grouse, so now it's like an $80 grouse.
Yeah, that takes your budget and it just throws it right out the window when you're sending $8 arrows to the sky. Like, no thanks.
Okay, I got a fix for that. I actually, Zach Kenner is the one that gave me this idea, but he said pack a slingshot so you don't use your arrows. I was like, that's freaking genius. So I got a $4.88 slingshot from Walmart, and I'm packing that this year. It's actually, I got the wrist rocket one, but I took the whole wrist rocket off just because it was like a little extra weight for the backcountry. But you could freaking carve with one out of a stick and probably use like 10 cents in tubing and make a slingshot.
I think that is a skill that everyone should know how to do in the backcountry. Because my mom used to work in the ER, so she'd always have the surgical tubing laying around the house or like in her little. So that was literally like we would go slay little squirrels and little birds in our yard with our little makeshift slingshots, dude. I don't know how I didn't think about that. That's way cheaper than an arrow.
Even if you take only like perfect shots with backdrops on grouse, like you're still gonna cost you an arrow. Like, don't do it. And I know it's so tempting, and like I've been there because the grouse will just sit there and be like, oh, bet you won't shoot me, and then zing, arrow gone every time, man.
Oh yeah,
it's like so tempting.
Without fail. Last year I was sitting on like this big knob where we'd heard a bunch of elk bugling. Like we heard them 3 days in a row on the same knob. And my buddy had gone back to town, and I was just chilling up there. And then these grouse just start feeding around. And I'm like, oh, sweet. That's going to be such good food. And, you know, as you're sitting on a bugling knob, like you just are looking across the canyon usually. And sure enough, it's sitting on the one branch that looks across the canyon. And I thought it was a great idea to launch one through it. Sure enough, got the grouse, but I have no idea where that arrow went. It went to the other side, you know, I mean,
across the freaking canyon. You know, another good budgeting tip, I will say, if you want to like hunt on the budget, on the low cost, you need to learn to cut up your own meat. Like if you're a college student, you have all the time, like there's a YouTube in front of you, like learn how to harvest, or I guess process your own meat. And it doesn't have to be fancy, but like I see so many people that hunt and then take their meat in and, you know, I don't even know how much it is. It's probably what, $300-$400 to have your meat processed.
Yeah, I think it's $300 or something. You know, I think a big part of that also is knowing where you can store it until you can get to all the meat. So like say you've got a big elk and you live in an apartment or something like I do, you can't fit it in your little 20 by 20 freezer. You got to have some buddies, you know, and if that means, you know, sacrificing a steak here or there to have a freezer.
I didn't even think about that. What do you do if you live in an apartment and you want to cut up an elk?
You better have some good friends. I think a large part of it is just like, God, you got to set that up and think about that beforehand.
That's smart. Yeah. Cause like you get meat on the ground. It's like, you got to make a decision now.
Oh yeah. The other thing is like, I don't have very big coolers or anything. So what I run is like, I'd run like a tarp. I'd have ice in a separate cooler, just full to the brim of ice. And then you have a tarp, and then you put the meat down and put ice on it. And I know it gets it wet and it's probably not the best idea, but I mean, it keeps it cool while you get to town.
Yeah. And like if you're hunting, so just for people who don't know, if you're hunting in September, you should probably put your ice on meat on ice if you're going to drive very far. But say it's November, even October, and it's, I don't know, 55, 60 degrees, and you have a 3-hour trip home, like, you'd probably be all right to not put it on ice. As long as your meat's not fluctuating in temperature much, like, you'll probably be okay as long as you get it home. Yeah, I see a lot of people like instantly trying to run it to the meat processing place. I didn't think about what you do if you have an apartment though.
Dude, yeah, it's not that easy. I'm pretty stoked I'm going to be moving to Laramie, and I'm going to have a full-on shed and garage and stuff. So that's going to be the end of that. But, you know, for the last 5 years, it's been kind of like interesting to think about. Plus, my girlfriend isn't super into dead animals, so I've been having to, find like even some other sinks to clean stuff in.
She doesn't like it when you just flop a whole quarter on the kitchen counter?
Oh, no, not so much. It's even worse. It's even worse if I get any ducks or, upland game and I bring them home and the feathers are everywhere. The dogs got them on their nose. Like, she comes home. What has been going on? Yeah.
When I lived in town, I used to have, I could cut up a deer, like an elk. I'd probably do in the garage or like run out to the farm and do it somewhere. But like a deer, you can cut that up on the counter in an hour. So just flop a whole deer on the counter, like no big deal. But yeah, that's something to think about. Like, and a good way to approach that, I guess, if I was a college student, I'd be trying to find friends, family, whatever it may be, and say, hey, I'll give you, I don't know, a quarter elk seems like a lot, but like, hey, I'll hook you up with some steaks. Maybe half this backstrap if you really need it. Like, you got to work down the negotiations, though. I mean, you start with like, hey, I'll give you like this heart and liver, and then pretty soon it's like, hey, I'll give you some steaks, and then maybe it goes to a quarter, and then maybe it's a backstrap after that. Like, that's like getting desperate to get somewhere, but bargain it out to where you're like, hey, I'll set up and help me cut this up. And I think that's pretty common. Like, I don't know, even when I was in college, I remember cutting up deer with buddies. Be like, hey, come over, let's cut up deer. And kind of just divide it up between buddies or friends or whatever it may be. But yeah, definitely think about that situation before you get into it, though.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing, so this is something I ran into a couple of years ago. So kind of related to transportation more than it is food, but I drive this like hippie looking Honda Element. It fits me going to the University of Oregon.
I forgot about this. I'm glad you brought this up because I would have forgot.
Yeah. So the first year I started shooting my bow, I killed a deer, and then I looked at my Honda Element. I go, uh-oh, what am I going to do with this thing? And luckily I was close enough to home. I was able to, I called my little brother and got him out of bed and was able to have him come up with his pickup to throw the deer and throw it all in the back of his rig. But if I didn't have someone nearby with a pickup, I would have just been rolling it in the back seat of my car. And that would not been so good. But I mean, I kind of learned from that lesson of like, be sure you have like a good backup plan, because otherwise you're going to, end up with a stinky car in the least.
Yeah, I think if you're going to be a college student and a hunter, you should invest in a good tarp. Maybe two. Yeah. Like Beinart's got some, I know I ditched them, but they got some pretty good tarps for like $10, maybe $20. Probably a good investment.
Yeah, good investment. I was going to say, in the same lines of having good buddies, if you need to trade some meat or something to borrow a rig, that's also probably a good idea. That's going to be an investment on their part, assuming that you fill your tag. But like in college and high school, I'd always just borrow, a farm rig from somewhere nearby, either our place or like my brother's pickup or something. And if you need to trade for that, I was thinking about your guys coming from, the Midwest coming out to hunt in Colorado or Wyoming. It might be a good idea to just find an unused rig somewhere and hopefully it's reliable. Use that to get out instead of having to try to rent one for a couple $100 and having to split that up.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, on that note, someone asked me about this the other day. Is like, and this is not just college dirtbag type situation, but say you're thinking about coming to Colorado from back east, and you're like, okay, I can't really drive; it's a long ways. I'm just gonna fly. I don't have the time. Whatever it may be. Like, hit up your resources, like Facebook groups. If you don't know if you go to like Elk Addicts or one of the Facebook groups, and just hit them up and say, hey, can someone give me a ride to this trailhead? Now, there's some like serious downsides to that. First of all, not having transportation is a little bit of risk. So make sure you trust that person. But at the same time, like, don't rent a car just to leave it parked at a trailhead for 5 to 7 days or however it may be. So if you can find someone, same thing, like make a trade. You could probably help them out with fuel or whatever it may be, and like $100. Even if you had to give them $250, it's probably cheaper than a car rental than leaving the car parked there for 4 or 5 days.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think forums and Facebook groups and all that stuff, like, still underrated for resources for helping someone get somewhere. Now, obviously, you don't hop on there and say, what broadhead do you shoot? Where should I go? Or what camo is best? Like, those 3 questions off the table. But if you engage in like serious conversation, a lot of those guys are super helpful and might end up being your hunting buddies, like I found out last year. And that's a good way to just start building relationships and having people kind of across the West that you can pick their brain or just hit up if you need help. I think that's huge.
Yeah, another good way to do it, I would say, is like, say you live in the Midwest and you got some good whitetail ground. It's not out of the question to be like, hey, I'm coming to Colorado. Let's go on Elkhart. You can come to Iowa and come whitetail deer hunting with me. Like, those are still, doing trades like that's very underrated. And I think a lot of people would be stoked to do that. Like myself back in college, I've been stoked to go hang out with some random dude in Iowa and go whitetail hunting and, like something I'd never done before. Like, that would be kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like, so definitely utilize what you have to benefit other people. And it goes back to like just providing 51% value. Like, how do I, what do I have that someone may consider valuable, and how can I trade it up? So, I trade 51% value.
Yeah, you bet. And I think, like we've talked about before, if you're on one of these college budgets, you clearly don't have a lot of money to trade. You can't pay someone for information or pay someone for their help. You do have a lot of time though, and some people have some talent. And those 2 things I think are what you need to go to if you don't have the funds to foot some of the stuff, like a car rental or something like that.
Yeah.
Just a good one, I think, about public land or hunting private land a lot. Like, if you go up to someone and you've seen some bucks on their property, you're like, God, it would be sweet to hunt there. Just friggin' offer to help them around their ranch, or offer to help them, weed whack the fence line or something, and that kind of offer of your time goes a long ways, especially with some of those old folks who are probably, or older folks who are probably owning the property.
No, absolutely. Or even like if you have someone that say they're big into hunting and maybe you have more time and they have more money, like it's like the old paradox, right? You either have time or money. Well, when you're in college, you have time. And so if you say, hey, Joe, it's your dad's buddy, I don't know, maybe he's a big hunter, and you're like, hey, I'll go scout this unit, this, and this, if you help me out, maybe buy my tag or help me out, do this, whatever it may be, like take me with you, I can go scout it. Such and such. I guarantee there's a lot of people that if you were like, hey, I'll go check game cams every other week throughout the entire summer if you pay for fuel, they'd be like, heck yeah. Like, here's here's some gas money. Like, perfect. Whatever it may be. Like, just, it's all about looking at what you have and how can that benefit someone else and making a trade.
That reminds me of something like that I was thinking about earlier. And that's trading your time in order to get good prices on your gear. Because the last few years, like I mentioned, I've been working at a ski shop, and clearly not a professional skier, nor am I professional at anything, but I've been able to get pro deals on a lot of that gear. And it's just like maintaining those relationships. I work a few weekends a year, and I can still, kind of be part of that program, part of that system. And I think a lot of people overlook the fact that, like, you don't have to be a pro in order to, be involved in the industry or be involved in, some of those pro programs. That's a huge way to save some money on gear too.
It's not coming to me. I can't think of it. There's a website that you can get like pro deals on gear. God damn it.
ExpertISTE?
Yeah, that's the one. Is that a legit thing?
Oh, it's super legit. Yeah. So like, it depends. Like, being at a ski shop, we didn't have a whole lot of hunting gear. So you'll see me rocking a lot of like outdoor research. I do have like a couple Arc'teryx pieces I rock. and stuff like that. It's really high quality, not camo, but a lot of that stuff is really keeps me comfortable. And like that stuff is like, again, going back to what we were saying, like if you know how it works, just based on what they say on the tag of like, you know, it's got this kind of Gore-Tex, this kind of insulation, yada, yada. You can usually get some really good stuff off there.
So that's off ExpertISTE. How does it work? Don't you have to like write articles, or like what is the basis behind it?
You have to like do these little online lessons. So you actually learn stuff about the company and about the products that you're getting access to. It's really sweet actually as like a way to just teach yourself more about this stuff too. Especially when you're looking at like, some companies like Sitka or QU or First Light, you realize that like a lot of these mountaineering companies have been doing it that same way or slightly different, but with similar materials for a long time. And that just like builds that base knowledge of the equipment you're using and how to use it better.
Nice. And then you get good, you get deals by doing all these like checkpoint things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the important part. You get like 50% off,
Sweet.
60% stuff.
So what other poor guy resources are out there, budget dirtbag resources? Can you think of any off the top of your head for like, I don't know, budgeting to, I don't know, getting gear, all that kind of stuff?
Okay, so first thing that's not really related to budgeting, but is an awesome resource is Camo Fire. Freaking Camo Fire is like, it's dangerous. Because
I'm
they
gonna
have
argue
like deals every 24 hours.
Here's where Camo Fire's bet, because you're gonna spend money that you wouldn't have spent anyway. Like I am notorious for doing that. I'll see something on Camo Fire and be like, "Oh, that's a screaming deal," and then buy it.
I think it's got to be like you got to be super patient. Like I've seen this little rack for the back of my car that has been on there, and it would kind of solve the issue of having a dead animal in the back of the helmet. Anyway, I've seen it on there like 3 times, and I'm like, I know it's not in the budget, but it'll come back around. So I think, like you said, if you have a little restraint, you can do it. But you also like need to know what you're buying when you're on there, because like I bought some stuff off there a couple years ago. And it's not anything against Camo Fire because they have a lot of really high quality stuff on there. But I just bought these like cotton camo t-shirts and pants, and they ripped out like the first day I was using them because they were just, I mean, they're super cheap. I was super stoked about them. Yeah, not a good idea because I didn't really know what I was getting into.
Yeah, there's some things that are probably in that buy nice, not twice category. I was trying to think of like one off the top of my head.
Boots.
I disagree. Like, I ran tennis shoes, dude, like for years. And I know that like boots are important in theory. I don't know. Maybe I just got dumb feet. I don't know. Same with the pack. Like I had the same pack from 2004 to 2015. So like,
that's fair.
Yeah.
I last year. So this is my just most recent experience. Last year, I had a pair of tennis shoes, a pair of Keens, and a pair of some like real short, like La Sportiva running shoes. And when it snowed on me,
that's fancy.
Well, no. I had the La Sportiva shoes given to me. It was awesome. Like that was it. You'd get like these little fancy people running through the ski shop, like, "Hey, these might fit you. Like, take these." And I was like, "Oh yeah." Anyway, but when it snowed on us, I mean, none of that stuff was one, gonna hold up my ankles for like rolling around in the snow and the muck and crap. 2, none of that stuff kept the snow out either. So like I was dying. I swapped shoes out like twice a day and, you know, would crank up the heat in the rig once we got back there to try to dry them out. But that was like, then I ended up with a pair of Crispies, and in the late season archery hunt was like, oh, sweet. These are way better. You know?
I will say, like, having suffered through years and years of garbage stuff, like when you do finally get and you can afford nice gear, and it's only taken me like 20 years though, but when you do get like First Light or you get some nice crispy boots, you're like, man, this is pretty handy. Like these are pretty nice.
Oh yeah. But this is actually another good point. Like, use those forums and use Facebook to get into some of that gear for cheaper. Your camo stuff, I've noticed, is like maybe $5 off retail if they're selling it on some of those. Yeah. But like, I got my Kafaru backpack for $100. I got a pair of Crispies for also $100, and a pair of, and like a Thermarest, what are those things? Sleeping pad for $20. You know, like you can really finagle your way into some good stuff without spending a whole lot of money.
Was that
if you're paying attention.
or off like Craigslist?
It was like Facebook.
Oh, Marketplace
stuff.
Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to get into exactly what I was talking about before the podcast, and I didn't want to tell you on the podcast.
All right.
So you know how Gary Vaynerchuk has the flip challenge?
Yeah.
So the flip challenge, for everyone who doesn't know, is like Gary's entrepreneur dude that talks a lot about, you know, just you can pretty much get money wherever you want, and you just have to work for it. And so many people are asking for handouts or bitching that, you know, things are too expensive. Kind of like the hunting industry. Everyone's bitching that everything's too expensive. So I want to do a flip challenge similar to Gary's. So I was thinking, this kind of goes back to that financial planning podcast that Mike Harrelson and I did. We were talking about, like, if you want a sheep hunt, you want a sheep slam, you can do it. Line it out, budget it. I don't care if it's a 20-year plan for one sheep hunt or it's a 5-year plan, but it can happen. You just have to like line it out. So it got me thinking, like, on this whole flip challenge that Gary's doing. And what if you did like a flip challenge for a sheep hunt or an elk hunt, or like whatever it may be? I don't even know what the price is. Like Gary's was like to make $20,170 in a year. But I think, I mean, that's pretty high, and I think it's very doable.
That's pretty steep.
Yeah, but realistically, it's very doable. And but that's a sheep hunt in 1 year. So if you're talking like build up $5,000 for your hunting season, like $5,000 is plenty of money to have a really good hunting season. Like you're hunting out of state, you're putting in your applications for a couple states, like you're doing well. And I think $5,000 per year of earning extra capital is totally doable. So the flip challenge that I want to like put out there to listeners is, and my buddy Joe is going to get pissed at this because we were talking about this and the idea came up because he does this, and he was like, you can't give that away on the podcast. I was like, yeah, but it's only regional, so I'm not giving it away like in your spot. But the flip challenge would be like, go to like a Cabela's bargain cave and find gear at a bargain cave, or find gear on Craigslist or even Camo Fire and flip it on eBay and or Craigslist and or Facebook Marketplace, like all these places. Like finding hunting gear and flipping it, right? Like there's so much gear out there, and there's so many dudes that buy new gear every year and then just kind of get rid of whatever for dirt cheap. Like finding it and flipping it. I think you could make easily $5,000 to $10,000 a year just flipping hunting gear.
All right. I think that's a good idea. You know, I saw a watch on Camo Fire the other day. It was like $25 and its retail was like $300 or something. And I was like, no way. And I was like, I should do it. And I was like, dang it. No, I will apparently do it now that I've been challenged. Thank you.
It's $25, dude. And like, so like you could sell it for $50. And granted, like, I think Camo Fire is going to be tough because obviously that's based on stuff that either they're getting good deals on, or, you know, that's going to be a surge in the marketplace. But I think if you're pretty savvy and you watch prices and you pay attention to eBay stuff, you could go into any Cabela's bargain cave. And for those of you who don't know, like Cabela's bargain cave, like Cabela's has a section where they sell stuff that's like a return, or they're, I don't know, like a weird something, I don't know, like what stuff that's, they can't put back on the shelves, generally is what it is. Like someone returned it, they can't put it back on the shelves. It goes on the bargain cave and they try to off it for what they can. Now, if you took that same thing and you knew the prices, say it's like some sick kid jacket, right? And it's perfectly good condition, someone returned it, but for whatever reason, it's got a mark on it. I don't know. You could flip that on Cabela's or Cabela's, Facebook Marketplace or eBay and make, I don't know, maybe $100. You're well on your way. You know, how many times can you do that?
Don't forget like REI garage sales and like some of those other companies out there that are like selling stuff super cheap. Like I was in at Costco the other day and there was a climate sleeping pad in there for like $25. And I was like, oh, no way. You could have totally bought a bunch of those up and flipped them for 10 or 15 bucks a piece. Like that kind of stuff, just having your eyes and ears out for those kinds of crazy sales, dude. you could totally flip stuff and make quite a bit of money without putting, a whole lot of time or boots on the ground, really.
Yeah. And I think if you're like a college kid and you have time to like be cruising, eBay and like check and see what stuff's selling out, seeing the prices, all this, I think very doable. Not only could you get to, $5,000 a year, but like if you wanted a sheep slam, I guarantee you could flip stuff. Maybe it's going to take you 5 years of flipping stuff, but you could earn up enough to make a sheep hunt, right? That's pretty impressive if you could go from like, hey, college student, during college, I paid for a sheep hunt. That's impressive to me.
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss to not mention the Craigslist free stuff. I pulled it up before our conversation because I was like, I wonder what's on here. There's like 3 couches, a hot tub, a dresser, like some pallets, some other stuff that you can make things out of. Like, I know that Randy Newberg like stresses don't be a handyman. Well, don't be a handyman unless you're on a budget. Then be a handyman with freaking everything. Because like you could spray paint or not spray paint, but you could paint up like this old desk or something like that and flip it and make a lot of money pretty quick.
Dude, just even taking pictures of something. And actually, it's funny that this conversation is happening because literally today, I had a filing cabinet on Craigslist for $50, and some lady hit me up like 2 weeks ago, and she's like, "Hey, can I come out?" And I'm like, "Sure." And she never came out. And then a week, I don't know, it was longer than that. It was over quite a period. Anyway, the last time I had messaged her was like 2 weeks ago. She didn't make it out. Whatever. Don't worry about it. I walk in the shop today, and this filing cabinet is still sitting there. I literally texted the lady. I was like, if you can come get it today, it's free. And she shows up and gets it. Like, there's people like me that are just tired of, and this is this is a 4-drawer cabinet. I think I paid probably $300 for it. Just gave it away today because I got pissed and tired of looking at it in my shop. That happens all the time. Like, trust me, that happens all the time. And like, if you're privy to those situations, you can make some dollars. So you could have grabbed that filing cabinet and sold it for $50, made $50 in literally 20 minutes. You know what I mean?
That's sweet. Yeah.
The other one I was going to say is like, find people. This is totally profiling, but there's a reason it works. So find people who, maybe, I don't know, late 40s, early 50s, looks like they do a lot of hunting, right? They spend a lot of money on hunting gear. And I would reach out, DM them, message them, and be like, hey, do you have any old hunting gear like you're willing to sell or get rid of? Now, I say this because, like, when I moved to Montana, I had a pile of camo and random stuff, and I had this whole box, and I literally called my buddy up and was like, hey, does your kid want this? Like, he's got a 16-year-old kid. And I was like, maybe it'll work. Some of it, maybe not. Literally gave him an entire box of camo, just old stuff I had over the years. And, like, the same thing. Like, you could just DM people, be like, hey, just looking for some camo. Do you got any old camo or hunting gear you're willing to get rid of? Like, what's the worst they say? No, sorry.
No. Yeah. No, and I was actually that little 16-year-old kid that you just gave your camo to, and I still rock a lot of that stuff that was like this old guy living down the street. His kids had all graduated, like had kids and of their own, and he was like, well, I'm not hunting anymore. He's like, I hear, you like to run around the hills. Here's some camo. And I was like, sweet. Still run that stuff to this day. Like, that kind of stuff is money. It's a good way to go. So just hit up those old folks who aren't hitting the hills anymore.
It's not even old folks. Like, if you get the reason I said like that, I don't know, 40 to 50 range is like usually that's somewhere in the vicinity of like you have enough gear, but your gear is not super old. It's still worth value of some kind, and that varies so much. It's hard to say for sure. But like I was the same way too. Like I had an old mentor, actually the guy that got me to move to Montana. He gave me all kinds of old hunting gear and stuff, and just stuff he didn't use anymore. Like just had, enough. He didn't really, like, you just acquire gear, like over, 20, 30 years of hunting. Of course, you're going to have way too much gear. Just give it to me, just give it away. And but like, you could go down, like say, how many people could you DM while you're in class? Let's just say after class, so you don't get in trouble. But like, 20 DMs, like send out, like just, hey, such and such, you got any old hunting gear you want to get rid of? Yeah, sure.
That's a huge way to do it. I think a lot of it is like, being on a budget is not for most introverts. I feel like, a lot of it is just reaching out to people and like talking to people, whether it's in person or in a forum. Like a lot of it is just being a human who wants to like you said, give 51% of the value. Just like be a good person when you're trying to plan your hunts and get good gear and that kind of thing.
Oh, for sure. I don't know. The one thing that bugs me is like, I remember, and it's like still true, but you see a lot of people that are like, oh, hunting's too expensive. Hunting's too expensive. But instead of just complaining about it, why not just make more money? Like figure out a way to pay for it. And I think the reality of it is it's not that much. It's not that expensive. Like there's far more expensive hobbies. So I think if you a little bit of grind and a little bit of sacrifice, and at the end of the day, just be able to define what's a want and what's a need, that car rack, so you can put a dead animal in your car. For the record, that might be a need. I don't know.
It's close, man. We'll see. We'll see how that one plays out. Yeah.
I did hear Kelsey work with a guy in the ER in Salem that put an elk in and or around his Prius. I don't know, like if it was in his Prius. Yeah. I just heard from behind the peanut gallery in the Prius. Skylar from the ER in Salem put an elk in his Prius.
That's awesome, dude. That's gotta. I want to see what the smallest vehicle like someone could get an elk into. It would be. I just see this like the rabbit, like a Volkswagen, the little rabbit that gets 50 miles of the gallon. Like I want one of those to have it. Get it,
dude. If someone can put an elk in a Prius, that's money.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
Alrighty, man. So there's your challenge. You got to pay for a sheep hunt with Craigslist gear.
Okay. Well, the other thing I can't not mention this app and like budgeting tool called Mint. And, for anybody who's trying to, save up for hunting or just keep track of their finances, even though this stuff really sucks, it's not my favorite thing. It gets you into the mountains, so that makes it my favorite thing. And just use Mint. They've got an app for your phone, and you can connect everything. You literally don't have to do anything except set your budget one time, and then and get alerts when you're getting close to it. And then you can also set your goals and stuff on there. Like I think if there's one little resource that people find from this podcast, it's that little tool right there, Mint. It's sweet.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I have another app, or correct me if Mint does this as well, but I have another app called Stash, and Stash automatically pulls out like amount each week. So, you set it up for like pull $50 a week, or, it could be 25 a week, whatever it is. And each week it automatically pulls from your bank account. So it's like, you don't even notice it's just, $15 or $20 or something like that. Which is a really cool app.
That's sweet.
Yeah. I really like that. And that's a great way to like save without saving, just instantly. Like, you don't really notice when it's $15 a week. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you bet. And I think maybe working with both those in conjunction is awesome, because like this one will show you how far you are into your goal. Like I'm 2 weeks behind my goal right now, and I'm like, God, I better go buck some more hay bales because I need to make the difference. But yeah, no, that's a good one too. So Mint and Stash.
Yeah, and if anybody's interested, like the next level to this podcast would be episode 198. Mike Harrelson, Angela Harrelson helped us do a podcast called Mapping Your Money to Maximize Your Hunts. And it's kind of like a little bit upper level planning out your sheep hunts, how to think about that stuff, which I think is important too. Like I think even, when you're young, if you got ambitions to hunt around the world, whatever it may be, start thinking about that now, because it's just like your retirement. It doesn't get easier as you get older. You got to start planning ahead, and that makes it much, much easier to plan for these things or save for these things. And really the only way to make it happen is to plan for it, right?
Yeah, you bet. I really liked how they were talking about the New Zealand hunts in there too. Yeah. I think that's probably on my earlier bucket list, to knock out. Yeah, definitely go listen to that podcast. Those two, obviously, he's a financial advisor or something like that.
Yep.
They know their stuff.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Well, appreciate it, Jaden. Thanks for jumping on, man. Glad we finally get you on here. We'll have to do it again. We'll think of something to ponder about. I think we could still map out this whole thing of buy tags, not gear.
Oh yeah, well, I'm keeping track of both my spending and my budgets for this whole hunting season. So by the end of this thing, I'll be able to tell you exactly how much money I will spend, and hopefully I'll have some filled tags on the other end too. So maybe we'll touch base after I've got a full freezer.
Just don't map out the dollar figure or dollar per pound. Like that's a little.
All right, I won't do that. Cool, man. Well, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, buddy. All right, where can guys follow you on Instagram? What's your Instagram handle?
It's just Jaden Bales. It's my own, name. I guess I was early enough to be a cool kid and get it there. So JadenBales. That's it.
All right, Jaden. Appreciate it. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
All right, real quick before you guys take off, doing an iTunes 5-star shout out. Appreciate you guys' reviews, taking the time to leave a review. Thank you. Today's 5-star shout out and free gear goes to Mountain Man Sam, who writes best Western big game hunting podcast there is. 5 stars. Cody has a variety of guests who share great insights on hunting Western big game animals. This is a must listen to podcast if you enjoy Western big game hunting or hunting in general. Sorry, I can't speak today. I think I got something. I've been hacking up all week. Anyway, thank you, Mountain Man Sam. Appreciate it. And hit me up. Send an email to cody@theridgeoutdoors.net and we'll hook you up with some free gear, free swag. Guys, go leave a review. We're going to do some more giveaways and I appreciate it. They tell me iTunes reviews are good, so we got to get more. I don't know. We got 1,000. That seems pretty darn good to me. I'm pumped about that. Alrighty, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast and we'll see you on Monday. This episode brought to you by iSocialBoost. iSocialBoost is an Instagram growth tool that can help you grow your tribe in an organic way. iSocialBoost has been helping me grow the Backcountry Fuel Box Instagram for the last couple of months, and I have been blown away with just almost over 7,000 followers now, and they're helping me convert followers into subscribers. Whether you're a small business or just want to grow your personal following, iSocialBoost can help you get thousands of real followers that actually fit your brand. I've actually been so impressed with them that I'm having them start to grow the podcast Instagram as well and helping get exposure to the podcast for all those people that maybe don't even know it exists. Check them out. If you want to give them a try, you will not be disappointed. Head over to isocialboost.com. Use the promo code TRO and you'll get 80% off your first week. They're so sure that you're going to love it. They're basically giving it to you for free. Go check it out if you want to grow your small business or just grow your personal brand. Instagram is a great place to do it. Check it out. Today's episode brought to you by onX Maps. onX is a must-have tool for all of you serious hunters. With season just around the corner, I am constantly using my onX to e-scout and learn everything I can about my upcoming hunts. onX Maps works across all of my devices, so I can scout areas, mark locations on my desktop, and then automatically they appear on my phone when I'm in the field using my smartphone as a GPS. onX even works on your phone if you don't have service or it's in airplane mode. I just save all the maps that I am going to need, and before I head into the backcountry or go out of service, and my onX app will show me right where I am and show me all of my waypoints from e-scouting and all of my marked locations. onX is available in all 50 states, and I can't speak highly enough about this system. It is truly a must-have for me, and I think anyone hunting out west. Even if you're not worried about the public-private, you're hunting deep in the wilderness, it's still an awesome tool. But if you're anywhere near private land, it is a must-have. Use the promo code TRO, and you'll get 20% off your membership. Go download it today and get familiar with the app before your hunt. Don't download it on your way to your hunt. Get familiar with this because there's so many cool tools that you can learn from it. Go to onxmaps.com. Check it out.
Hey guys, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show and maybe even picked up a few tips along the way. Join us right here every Thursday morning for more interviews and great hunting tips. And be sure to help us out by leaving a review on iTunes. For more information about this show and the rest of our guests, check out the show notes for links and additional resources on our website, www.therichoutdoors.net.